Hey, Lynn, thanks so much for joining us for the CX Reflex. How are you doing this afternoon?
Wonderful. I'm so glad to join you today. My favorite topic.
Yes, we're happy to have you here. Okay, so let's just dive right in. What do you think? And this is going to be a two-parter, so buckle up. What do you think is the biggest misconception that contact centers have about their customers, but also about their agents?
Well, I think that it's not necessary to evaluate every agent with every transaction with customers. In fact, if you understand what customers are really looking for, you should be able to self-monitor as an agent your own performance, like keep a tally list of, did you remember these key factors? And you probably have already identified those. I just think it's overkill to expect customers to give a rating for every transaction. I think it actually is detracting from the experience. And frankly, I feel like it's making customers do the job of the supervisors. So I see several problems with that. When I contact customer service for whatever reason, I've usually gone through an exhaustive self-service attempt. And otherwise, in any case, I'm usually pretty frustrated because I expected something to work and it's not working for me. I don't see the information. I need help. And so it's already, stretching me thin to just reach out to service. Going further to, I feel a little bit guilty that I don't want to participate in the survey. Yeah, there must be a lot of other people like me.
Yeah, I never take them.
Yeah, I think that there just should be more self-monitoring. And in fact, when you identify those issues or those performance standards, those are actually leading indicators of how the customer is going to be feeling and how they're going to be reacting. So for example, if you have a tally sheet where the agent can just keep track of, like, did I do these things? Did the customer give these type of responses? Then that should be their cue for how to modify their performance on the next call, and just leave it at that.
So how do you recommend people in the contact center, leaders specifically, communicate the value of the contact center using those findings?
There's tremendous opportunity here that's being squandered, because when you really think about what the achievements are of a contact center, they are turning around churn. They are squelching negative word of mouth that, left unchecked or left unserviced, would be exploding. So the value is severely underestimated. And I think that if you would do some analysis of sentiment in those calls, if they're recorded, why not use the technologies we have to evaluate how many of them went from kind of a severe emotion to a neutral emotion or a happy emotion. And any kind of judgment call on that would also suffice in what percentage of those calls actually turned around a defection. And if you know anything about the lifetime value or what the general revenue level is of that type of customer, you can make some estimates of, hey, here's how much we have saved our sales and marketing organization from having to recoup, because the name of the game is month by month, you're supposed to be showing higher revenue. Quarter by quarter, year by year, you're supposed to be showing higher revenue. And so when we have customers churn, it means that we have to be investing more in marketing and sales to recoup those lost customers. So I think that it's just common sense to evaluate how much this is being prevented and really tout that as, gee whiz, this isn't just a cost center. Absolutely not. We are creating value for the overall revenue trajectory of this company.
Yeah, absolutely. And you you make a really good point, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into customer lifetime value. And I mean, I'm sure lots of people, right, we all know what it is, but like, how do you calculate that?
Well, it's just cumulative growth from a customer, cumulative value, meaning you take the revenue that the customer represents minus the cost that they represent. Now, where people just give up on customer lifetime value is looking at the costs. There are fixed costs and then there are variable costs. So how do you assign that to each customer? Or we don't really know exactly what the length of relationship would be for that cumulative aspect of lifetime value. And maybe some of the revenue is in different databases. They bought online, they bought at the store, they bought, through this and that. So you don't have full information. Get over it, because there are tons and tons of decisions made in businesses that aren't on full information. Look at the last 10 questions as decisions made by people over in HR, maybe people in legal, made by people over in engineering or whatever. They're not always with perfect information. In fact, very, very rarely. So with customer lifetime value, the whole secret of it is to select whatever component of revenue and whatever component of cost that you do have, and make that clear that, a disclaimer, here is some information that we have that is just the tip of the iceberg as far as the big picture, but gee whiz, isn't this amazing how much value there is on the table, how much cost there is that we're wasting, squandering. And this is how you can really reach the hearts and minds of executives in any position, because everybody wants more budget. Everyone would love to have more headcount or greater salary increases, more budget to expand their projects, or even just more profit to provide to investors, which are often managers themselves. So anytime that you can quantify what's happening, not just in click-throughs, CSAT, whatever metrics we tend to talk about in our specialty, get beyond that and talk about it in terms of opportunities at risk. That's the revenue part. Or opportunities being jeopardized because the costs that are going down the drain, and or the combination of that, revenue minus cost for any duration. Just be clear about your source of information, and then you'll probably engage managers in a conversation about capturing more of the full revenue and more of the full costs. And this is what companies do that have become more mature in customer lifetime value. They started with baby steps. They incrementally increased their sophistication, over time. And usually it was 3 to 4 to 5 year process in becoming comfortable with, we feel like we have a good representation of CLV, but just start somewhere. And that's much better than what we've done in the past.
So what I'm hearing you say is, because in part you've answered my next question, but I'm going to try to rephrase, so bear with me. It sounds like you're saying customer lifetime value is a great way to strategically center the focus on the contact center as a profit center, as a revenue generating machine. How do you extend that kind of reframing of customer lifetime value to other buzzwords in the contact center, like omnichannel, customer experience, like those kinds of words that have sort of been rendered almost meaningless because they're used so often? So how do you build that strategic practice around those things to get buy-in and investment in the same way that you just described customer lifetime value?
Well, I think that anytime you're reporting to managers of any sort, it should be to stimulate action. And so if you can stimulate the originators of customer experience issues to begin a quest to prevent recurrence of that issue forever, that would be massive. Think of the dispositioning reports that you have, and how certain issues were there last year, the year before, they're going to be there the next years. Why? Because nobody has been motivated to get to the root of those issues and prevent them happening in the future. That is where the huge money is in customer experience gains. That's where you're going to be creating more of a hand in glove experience for customers, more of a magnetic attraction to your brand for both existing customers and new customers. And until we get into a prevention mindset where we want to resolve the root causes once and for all, we're going to continually be on an ongoing treadmill, and this whole nonsense of a cost center, and we should turn it into a profit center by getting customers to buy into stuff while they're getting service. I think it's really hurting customer experience. I think it's hurting trust and relationship strength with brands, and we just need to be shifting gears to recognize that there's 3 levels of customer experience improvement. One is resolving the instance. Second is preventing recurrence of an issue, period, for all customers. And then third is preventing occurrence of issues. And the third can only happen when we are taking customer stories, taking these dispositioning reports, taking the performance standards that customers have, actual recordings, that convey emotion, and sharing that at large with our entire ecosystem, suppliers included, supplier management included, until they become really sensitized to how their role has a ripple effect or a snowball effect on the post-purchase, the whole trust factor. We're going to be, I don't think we're going to be rising to the top in our industry, whatever industry you're in, given the dynamics that we have here post the pandemic.
So you identified obviously the 3 main reasons a contact center exists, right? To solve problems, to stop the repeat problem, and to eliminate the occurrence of problems altogether. What are 3 CX best practices that are as immovable as those first 3 that you just described?
Well, I think that this whole notion of intentional customer experience is extremely powerful and very underappreciated, underutilized. The idea is that from your marketing forecast what type of customer is your primary target. Who are you relying upon for your greatest growth in the coming quarters and next couple of years? This has been defined by the CFO, CRO, CMO, all combined, and you can just go and talk to the people in sales operations, marketing ops, revenue ops to learn that. Now, when you know who your core growth customer is, the characterization of that segment, then pay attention to the behaviors and the expectations and the performance gaps associated with that group of customer. Now, you really need to hit the nail on the head in resolving the instance, preventing recurrence, and also preventing occurrence of issues for that core growth group. It's kind of like the idea of high potential employees. You really rely on those high potential employees for succession planning and growing the company, expanding the capabilities for the future. The same idea applies to these core growth customers, and yet we aren't recognizing that in the way that we manage contact centers or customer experience, period. So when you have just zeroed in on the dynamics necessary for that group to be happier, to be more engaged, to be more magnetically attracted, to really own that market share, so to speak, you're in a better situation to snowball those learnings and those practices to the rest of the customers. The problem is that we don't focus first on them, and therefore everything we're doing is a bit diluted and not really ideal for anyone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so let's shift gears a little bit and let's think about the contact center of 2030. What does that look like? Are we in the metaverse? Are we speaking to Alexa?
So I think that there will be a lot of that, just to carry out of what we're already seeing with technologies. And I think that there's a tendency to be premature with some of this artificial intelligence. For example, there's one company that I bought from for 28 years, every year. And now that they have their artificial intelligence, when I call, they ask for my name and they can't understand, they spell out the name back and it's wrong. And I'm like, okay, you're just ruining things. I've already done the self-service. It's not getting me. I have to talk to someone, and they have so many gates associated with it. And the AI tries so hard, but it's really not cutting it. And I don't even have that hard of a name, really. So yeah, I just think that we need to be more careful with that and not so headstrong to cut these costs, cut the human interaction. Sometimes it causes a lot more harm than good. I think for the metaverse, it will be interesting in terms of self-help. I suppose that we'll all become more savvy with the metaverse over the next 5 or 7 years.
How do you think social media factors into that?
You mean word of mouth?
Yeah, well, you're talking about, so with the sentiment analysis and the listening and kind of trying to read between the lines of the subtext of what's really being felt or said, it's a similar practice to like social listening. So like, combing through a brand's, Twitter feed or their, Facebook, whatever, to see if there are complaints. Because a lot of the time people will take the opportunity to, go to your feed and lodge a complaint. So do you think that that's a must have or?
Oh, absolutely. I think that monitoring social media is absolutely important. It's also important to remember in any of these endeavors that trust building, relationship strength is what you're after. Prevention of issues and more human to human, I can't really, it's not necessarily human to human, it's just humanized reactions. So I've seen situations where social media is being managed to create a viral situation. For example, someone went to the movie theater and they complained that the popcorn was stale or something. They put that on Twitter. So then the movie theater might give them 10 free tickets, by saying to say sorry and make amends, but it's overkill, right? And people see that. And as much as, they're expecting, and they probably do get, wow, I got 10 free tickets just because my popcorn was stale. There are a lot of people who become disenchanted, actually disillusioned. It actually backfires because they're like, oh, okay, I see what's going on. It's self-serving. So it's a fine line in those remedies to react in a normal way, to not be too grandiose, to keep it real, basically.
I like that. I think that's a good note to end on. Keep it real. Lynne, where can we find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn at Lynne Hunsacker, Hunsaker, or Twitter is Clear Action, two words made into one word, clear and action, seeing clearly what you need to do to take action.
I like it.
I'd like to see you there.
Yeah, well, awesome. Well, expect a follow from me. And it was great chatting with you. Thanks so much for taking the time to hang out with me on the CX Reflex.